Welcome to a virtual coffee encounter, brought to you by the Holocaust Remembrance Association.
We have Dr. Kokkonen, who's going to be our speaker today, and we welcome you. We're so glad you're here, and all of you who are joining us. And spread the word. I think in the chat there's the link for Joan. If you could put in the link for other people to join in the chat there. Let's see. There it is. Share the link with your friends. There it is in the chat, and remind them that we're about to start on a very important topic on today's anti-Semitism. Dr. Kokkonen received her PhD in Holocaust Studies from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in 2004. She worked for several years at the Embassy of Finland in Tel Aviv. For 10 years, Dr. Kokkonen was the director of the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, World Holocaust Remembrance Center in Jerusalem. Dr. Kokkonen frequently contributes to TV and radio, in addition to hosting TV and radio programs. She acts as an advisor and writer for various projects, among them, of course, for us, the Holocaust Remembrance Association. Our focus is to end anti-Semitism by sensitizing hearts to the issues of the Holocaust through many of our projects. We have the Upstander Stone Project. We have books that we're publishing, actually a new one that just came out that you'll be getting soon from Amazon and beyond. This is written by Dr. Susanna Kokkonen, and it's a lot of the artwork from our Holocaust Garden of Hope, of which she wrote. We have seminars and all kinds of events, marches of remembrance throughout Texas, and also we promote them throughout the world. And Dr. Susanna is active with the March of Life in Finland. I don't know what it's called in Finnish, but March of Life movement in Helsinki. She has written our exhibits for the Holocaust Garden of Hope. Just for those of you who may not know this, but when we started the Holocaust Garden of Hope, we needed to find somebody who would be our author of it. And I remember when Dr. Susanna spoke in Houston, which is where we are, Houston, Texas. I remember this beautiful blonde person, very elegant and eloquent and intelligent, speaking to a large audience. And I was thinking, she was saying some pretty tough things that might have stepped on a few toes at that meeting, and yet people were applauding her. She had a way of politely saying some hard things that we need to confront when we're dealing with anti-Semitism in the church and all the different types of anti-Semitism that's out there, and anti-Judaism. So also what's happened is she's gone beyond working for nonprofits and embassies, and now she's very active in politics as well. She's the vice chancellor of the Christian Democratic Party at Helsinki City Council. She's also, of course, as I mentioned, the author of many books, and one of them here is, which our Holocaust Garden of Hope is focused on, is Journey to the Holocaust, Anti-Semitism, the Bible, and History. And that's one thing special about our Holocaust Garden of Hope. When you will visit us one day in Houston, you'll see that we are not ashamed to have Bible scriptures in there, because the Holocaust was not just against Jews, but against Judaism as well. And so that's very unique about our exhibit. And also we do. But the other unique side of it is we also bring in the stories of Nazi descendants. And it's because of Job Spittner, Nazi descendant, pastor and theologian and activist from Tübingen, Germany. In fact, actually, we all have cups. It's a virtual coffee encounter. Anybody have their cups to lift up? Dr. Kokkonen, you have your cup? I've got my cup. She forgot her cup. It's a virtual coffee encounter. We can't hear you. We don't have your audio on. I don't hear you, Dr. Susanna. Your audio is not on. Can't hear her.
You should be able to do it from your end.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said that I'm in the garden right now. I'm actually on vacation, so I don't have all my equipment with me here. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, but I can raise my
Glass? Okay,
yeah,
Mitch, you've got your
sure.
cup. All right, so Mitch, this is my husband, Mitch. He's the co-founder. We just lift up to life l'chaim for those who survived the Holocaust, and for us to learn how to prevent another one, actually. The reason I mentioned it right now is because my cup is from Tübingen University, which is an area where it was a university that was started in Germany, and for the chancellor that started it, he felt that to have a Christian university in this town, you couldn't have any Jews living in the town. And so they made sure that for 400 years, there were no Jews living in Tübingen, Germany. And that's where this pastor is that we will have on our program one day soon. So Mitch is here to help ask a lot of questions to Dr. Susanna. And we just bless you, and we're thankful that you're here, and we welcome you. Dr. Susanna, you want to go ahead and get started?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mitch and Rosalie and Joan, and of course, everybody who is online. I know it's a vacation time for many people, so it's great to see so many of you here. And it's very fitting, actually, that I'm here surrounded by these beautiful flowers in a garden, because we are talking about the Holocaust Garden of Hope. And I want to start with a few things that came to my mind, what makes it so special. But before I even go to that, I think it's always really important for me to emphasize that I'm a historian, but that we don't study the past just so we know different dates and we know different things that happened, but we really study it because we want to understand something that we can take from that history and bring it to our time. We are living in extremely troubling times, and I am going to come to that, but let me first describe what I see as special things that we have in the garden, because what happens is that all over the world, we have many museums of the Holocaust, and many people have visited those, and many people know that there's what is the basic history behind the Holocaust. So what makes the Holocaust Garden of Hope in Houston, Texas, a place that you should visit, or a place that is special? So let me start with this, that when we started working with Rosalie and her team on the very first exhibit, Why Remember the Holocaust, we were talking a lot about two books. And those two books would be the Bible, of course, because that was the starting point to us, and that is the book that we believe is the holy book. We know that the Tanakh, what we often call the Old Testament, that's the foundation of the Christian Bible, and frequently Jesus and the disciples, when they refer to the Bible, they always refer to that Tanakh, the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament. But the other book that we took, and we said that that book is also important enough to be mentioned in that very first exhibit, that is Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. And now the very basic thing, when we think about those two books and we think about the garden, we connect the Bible, of course, with the creation story and the Garden of Eden, and we think about how God created man. He created man in his own image. Man's value, the value that every person has, it doesn't matter if they are old, young, if they are ill, if they are in good health, their value comes from that very act that they were created in the image of God. And that's really important for us to think about. We should never minimize somebody's humanity, even if we completely disagree with the way they are living their life or with the things they are doing with their life. Or if they are sick or whatever is happening, we always have to remember God created man in his own image. And now we contrast that with the other book, Mein Kampf. So the Mein Kampf is a book full of hatred. You could say, if you wanted to look at the Bible in that way, you could say that the Bible tells a lot of stories about human hatred, but it's full of God's love to man. But Mein Kampf is a book that is full of hatred, and the specific target of that hatred are the Jews, but the racial hatred, the kind of hatred that it has, and the if you like, the scale of races, the way that some races are seen as superior and other races are meant to serve them until they are driven to extinction, that is totally opposite to what the Bible says, how God created man in his own image. So those two books are very important in that very first, where we start from why remember the Holocaust. And I want to say that Adolf Hitler's ideology and Nazi Germany, if you would just take the map of the world and you would look from 1939 on, what is Adolf Hitler doing? What is Nazi Germany doing? They are invading countries. They are killing so many people, murdering people, as well as people getting killed because of the war. They are dividing the world, and they are dividing people based on different factors, such as their religion, their national identity, their language, their race, their tribe, and so on and so forth. So it's a division. It's something that disconnects people from one another. And in the garden, when we tell the story, and we start from why remember, and then we go over the survivor testimonies, we tell the story of World War II and the Holocaust, and we come to the very end, which is the hopeful part. We talk about what happens after the war is over. We are actually connecting people, because we are telling stories of different religions, people from different religious backgrounds, who are saving somebody, who are risking their own life so they could save somebody else. We are telling stories of people who are completely secular or even atheist, and they decide that they want to be in the underground and they want to be part of the resistance. We are also connecting languages, because all these people come from very different parts of Europe. But even outside Europe, we have stories from Japan, for example, a Japanese diplomat who decides to risk his professional identity and his professional position by saving Jews who are looking for visas, who are looking for passports. We are connecting nations, religions. We are connecting Jews and non-Jews. And we are also connecting generations, because in the exhibits throughout the garden, we tell, of course, of the families of the people who perished, of the people who survived, but we also choose to tell stories of their descendants. There are stories of survivors that are told by their descendants, but there are also stories of Nazi descendants, which is very unique. People who saw what had happened in their family generations ago, they wanted to find out, they did the research or they studied the stories, and they decided that their life would be different, that in fact many of those descendants of the Nazis, their lives are standing in opposition to what their grandparents' generation was doing, and even in opposition to their parents, you could say, because in many cases, the parents decided that they did not want to talk about it. So when we talk about Tübingen and Pastor Jobst Bittner, who started this movement, March of Remembrance, which is an annual event every spring, he started it actually to repent from what had happened in the past generations. And the descendants of those people now tell their stories, and many of them, they wanted to serve Holocaust survivors, or they went to Israel and they wanted to serve. So they are making a difference today, but their contribution is completely different from what their ancestors did, what their grandparents did, or as Pastor Bittner talks about, the veil of silence. Veil of silence that's almost like a mythical concept, because when we think about a veil, we kind of think about it visually. We don't connect it so much with hearing. But he's talking about veil of silence, because the silence is like a veil that is covering also the eyes. And I want to give you something from the Bible just because it came to my mind, that when you think about one person who saw, but he didn't really see, the one person that I want to give you tonight is Lot. He and Abraham, they were standing and they were looking at the land, and he chose what seemed best to him. He chose the part that looked fresh, that looked good, that there were cities there and so on. But then in the end, we know that those cities were overthrown by God, and their sin was so great that he was suffering in his soul. But what does the name Lot mean? It means veil. So his eyes, he saw, but his eyes, they were covered. So I'm just saying that this is a very interesting concept, this veil of silence. And by telling those stories, that the descendants of these people, they want to expose, they want to say, yes, this happened in my family, I repent, and I'm going to devote my life and use my life in a different way. They are breaking the veil of silence. And I don't think there's any other place among the Holocaust museums that tells that story that way, at least in the United States. What I have seen, I've visited quite a number of them. Well, the other thing that we need to think about is that we have several different worldviews. Today it seems like almost everybody has their own worldview, but here when we are talking about this, we are really talking about the Jewish worldview, where the concept of holiness of life, it's very high. To save a life is so important that the Talmud says that if you save one life, it's as if you saved the whole world. And of course, Christianity comes from that. But then we have the Nazi worldview, which sadly, I believe that many totalitarian ideologies, they have adopted that same worldview, where an individual human life is not of such importance as the movement, as whatever cause the leaders want to achieve. And an individual life can be sacrificed for what they think is a greater cause. And I will have to today to draw a comparison to what's happening in Gaza and what happened with that Hamas attack. Because if you think about Hamas, how they are using people as human shields, and then Israel is being blamed for all those casualties. But you have to see that in that you have that same worldview where the lives of the individuals living under that authority are not important compared to the lives of the leaders of that movement and the struggle, what they want to wage against Israel, discarding the lives of the civilians who are living under their authority. It's very important to us that we can connect these things, that we understand. Like the Bible says that there is nothing new under the sun, but in a way you could say that that's very much visible right now with what's happening in the world today. The other thing that I want to point out to you as well is the power of speech. We have this quotation from Deborah Lipstadt, who is the US government envoy, anti-Semitism envoy, that it starts with words. And it does, it starts with words. No such action like the Holocaust could start from one day to the next. And when the Nazis, when that party started to express the hateful propaganda, that happened in 1919. So that's 20 years before World War II started. But people had to become familiar with that language. People, even if they might not themselves openly express those views, but they had to somehow become desensitized to that propaganda, and they had to somehow accept that maybe there's some truth in it, or maybe it's acceptable to speak like that because Hitler is going to solve the problems, the economic problems, political problems, and so on of Germany, and therefore we accept that speech. But then let me show you just one thing. So when we think about fences, we think about high fences, concrete fences, or something that is built. But in this case, I would say that just those words that were spoken consistently, the propaganda that was visible in the streets, in the radio, how the Jewish people were forced to leave their positions already in 1933 in April, when there was the famous boycott of Jewish businesses. They also actually targeted Jewish doctors. They could no longer practice public medicine and other professions in the civil service. So the fence that they were building, or the separation between Jews and the others, it doesn't have to be a visible concrete barrier. It doesn't have to be a visible ghetto, but you can feel that fence by making people look at those people and seeing them as so different. So that's what happened. So the important thing to understand is that of course, happened years before the Holocaust, years before the mass murder. And that's very important if you want to look at it from theological point of view, not just from history. The power of speech is emphasized throughout the Bible. God created the world by speaking it into existence. But then, of course, people are warned consistently throughout the Bible that we must bless, not curse, and how we are to express ourselves. And then I want to also to say that when we talk about what enabled the Holocaust, we speak about anti-Semitism, and I'm going to say a few words about that in a moment. But I want to remind us of Professor Robert Wistrich. Robert Wistrich sadly passed away in 2015, but I had the honor to hear him at the Hebrew University and Yad Vashem several times. He was the world's, I would say, one of the best known experts on anti-Semitism. He was also part of the commission that was going to investigate the Vatican and the Holocaust, which then was disbanded because they weren't given access to all the documents, but he was part of that. And when he spoke about anti-Semitism, he always called it either the longest hatred or the oldest hatred. And one of his books, actually, he called it From Time Immemorial. So he spoke about medieval anti-Semitism up to the global jihad, meaning that one particular phenomenon, that one thing, that one ideology, that it has outlasted everything that happened in between. Now think about it for a moment. So many different political systems, so many different political ideas, so many different ways of living. But then you say from medieval times until the global jihad, meaning until our days. And I feel like I want to read to you from my Bible. This is Ezekiel, Prophet Ezekiel, chapter 35. And it's very interesting because it almost, it really goes really well with what Robert Wistrich, Professor Wistrich said. So I read from verse 5. And this is about judgment. Because you have had an ancient hatred, and have shed the blood of the children of Israel. And then it talks about what's going to happen as a result. So Ezekiel is almost using the same words that Professor Wistrich used of anti-Semitism, the oldest hatred, an ancient hatred. And that's what we are witnessing today. And so in our exhibits in the garden, what is so important is that we are showing how important it is to remember, and that not just it's important for individuals, obviously, and it's important for the families of the survivors. It's important for the families of the Nazi descendants, but also for nations. And it's not just Nazi Germany that has to remember. It's not just the nations that were directly involved with the Holocaust, but it's really important for nations to remember their past in general. But then in terms of the Holocaust, for us to understand what happened and why it happened, that could be life-giving for nations. And that would even include the United States, even though the United States entered the war quite late. And many people might argue that the part that, that there's nothing to regret there. But I think it's really important for all of the nations to understand the lack of interest, the indifference that the Jews experienced in Europe at the time, and that indifference was one of the reasons why Berlin, why the Nazi leadership, why they knew that they could continue with what they had already started and what eventually would be accomplished by them. So now I just want to say this, that when we talk about anti-Semitism, and I said that it's the longest hatred and an ancient phenomena, that we have to see the continuum. We have to see, it's very interesting because different religions have different views on history. Because, for example, the Eastern religions, they don't see it as having a beginning and an end. They see it more as a cycle that repeats itself, continues. But Jews and Christians, we actually believe that there's a beginning and there's an end. And so if we believe that and we have this direct line, then we have the anti-Semitism and the different events that it caused, the different things on that line. And that is especially important now because of what's happening in Israel. I'll come to that in a moment. But let me say this. Where does anti-Semitism come from? I'm not going to go over all of anti-Semitism today. That's not the purpose of this talk, but I want to give you something to think about. That when we research sociology or history, we have this concept that we call the other. So what is the other? So you could say that I exist, you exist, because we are not something else. There is somebody else who is different than us, and we exist as we are because we are not like that person. So usually when we say the other, we mean that we see somebody in a negative light, and this otherness causes persecution. And the Jews, why would they be more other, if you like, than anybody else? So I want you to consider now something that I'm going to say. Even in places where there are no Jews, and I'm going to take as example my own country, Finland. We have very small Jewish community. We have just a couple of cities where we actually have synagogues. But even in the north, the very north, where people might never have met anybody Jewish, they might still express anti-Semitic views. And that happens everywhere. There are countries in the world, many countries, where there are no Jewish communities, but people there will still have these stereotypes, and they will still have these things that they say about the Jews. And this is not my own idea. Many researchers express the same thought, that this shows how somehow anti-Semitism and how Jews are seen shows that the Jews are more the other than perhaps any other minority. And one of the things that we need to understand today is that very often people who hate Israel, they say that it's possible to hate the Jewish state and not be anti-Semitic, not to hate the Jews. And this deserves some consideration. Is it really possible? Now, I want you to think about this, that when we come to the last exhibits of the garden, what do we talk about? We talk about the end of World War II, about Jews who are displaced persons in camps. They are waiting for their own state. So until 1945, the center of Jewish life was in Eastern Europe. You had the greatest rabbis there. And what was the language that was considered the Jewish language? It was Yiddish. That was spoken in Eastern Europe. And then 45, the World War II ended. Displaced persons were waiting. Where could they go? Jewish communities had been destroyed in many parts of Europe. 1948, we have the Jewish state. And that state, Israel, becomes the heart of the Jewish people. Even if you don't live there, you live in another country, you probably know people there, you have family there, you have visited multiple times. There are a lot of reasons why it's the center of Jewish life. And so, is it possible to not to be an anti-Semite, but criticize the state of Israel? People say that they criticize, and it's okay to criticize the state of Israel. That doesn't mean that you are an anti-Semite, but I do want to make this point that usually those same people don't criticize other countries in that region or other areas where they are committing human rights violations. Some of the worst countries in the world, some of the worst human rights violators in the world sit in judgment of Israel in the UN. And I want to mention this Francesca Albanese. So I don't know if you have been following this story, but your country, your administration has sanctioned her. So Francesca Albanese, she is a UN human rights rapporteur in a very high position, and she has been responsible for Israel and the Palestinian areas for a number of years. And she has consistently expressed very anti-Semitic views before this last conflict. Never mind what's happening now, what she's saying now, but her views before that. For example, nations such as France and Germany had already actually warned her because her views were so extreme. So what did she say? Well, she said, for example, that the Jewish lobby controls the UN. Now, isn't that interesting? When the UN has issued more declarations, resolutions against Israel than any other country, she says that Israel or the Jewish lobby, they control the UN. She also said about the Hamas attack that Hamas did not attack for anti-Semitic reasons. So Hamas too, according to her, is not anti-Semitic. This is just horrible. She said that Israel is guilty. It's Israel's fault that they attacked, that Israel has no right to defend itself. So I just want you to understand that it's very difficult for us to say that people could be criticizing Israel, not be anti-Semitic, because usually they don't have any other target. So Israel is the only nation state that they criticize. And these are so, the things that they say might be so outrageous that it's impossible to see them as some kind of fair political criticism. The other thing is that in general, the political decisions of a government such as Israel's government, they really should be criticized by their voters, by the people who voted that government into power more than everybody else around the world. I want to point out a couple more things before I am going to, allow for discussion or questions, or perhaps Rosalie and Mitch, Jerome want to make some comments. That in general, the criticism against Israel has expressions that come from already medieval anti-Semitic views that come from the past, that come from different accusations that were always made against the Jews. So that's another reason why it's anti-Semitic. If it crosses that boundary, that actually the expressions are anti-Semitic. So one such idea that has repeatedly come up now during this conflict is the idea that Jews around the world have somehow a part in what's happening in Israel. There's like this idea of collective responsibility, where any Jew living anywhere in the world are responsible for what's happening in Israel. And in some cases in Europe especially, or at least in Europe, if you are Jewish or if you are a Christian who supports Israel, then your views are like discredited. Even if you know what you are talking about, but you are discredited and made suspect because you support Israel. So these are very, very important things now to consider, because the media reports daily about supposed things that Israel is doing wrong, and we need to understand that there is a line that should be not crossed, and that anti-Semitism and the anti-Israel attitudes of today, they actually somehow go very closely together, and that's something important to understand. And I want to say also that sometimes people who come to listen to these talks and want to understand what's going on, they feel very uncertain. They feel that maybe they can't reply to people because they don't know, or they are not able to tell the whole story. They don't know enough facts. So I want to just to suggest that social media, people who are very loud in social media, they don't necessarily know more than you know. So I think, if, for example, if you find a person who knows, let's say that there are, for example, people like the son of Hamas, the Green Prince, or people that you can just point out. You can just say, well, if you are so interested in this topic, why don't you read the book? Because this is very much related to it. So you don't have to get into these heated arguments, but you can refer them to something that might actually interest them and that they probably have not heard of or they don't know about. But I think we need to stand very strong, because we are living in very troubling times. There's something almost daily coming out that you need to explain, you need to be able to speak about. So I would like to encourage you that probably it's possible that you know more than the people who are the loudest on social media do. And at the very least, it might be good to offer them something that they can read or study. So I am going to end here, and I'm going to let Rosalie and Mitch to lead the rest of the evening.
Thank you. I did take a few notes. I did wanted to point out a few things, and then I'm sure my husband has too. And also, this is a time for all of our participants. We have some very important, a lot of our wonderful people on this that are participating today, that they could feel free to write questions in the chat or the Q&A area, and then Mitch will read those out to you. I did want to say, what keeps coming to my mind is when Holly Ham, who's been helping us a lot here and is one of our advisors and was on our board, we went to the Association of Holocaust Organizations conference in DC a year or two ago, and Dr. Beringham, I forgot his name. How do you say his name?
Isn't it Michael Berenbaum?
Michael Berenbaum, yeah, who wrote all of the Holocaust Museum, Houston the United States Holocaust Museum. He's wrote the Jewish Encyclopedia. He's authored a lot of important videos about the Holocaust, a major connoisseur of the Holocaust. And what hit me was two things that he said at that conference. He said, considering this incredible rise of anti-Semitism that's happening right now, this was right after October 7th, actually, soon after that. He said, you have to unfortunately recognize how important our Holocaust organizations are, unfortunately, how important the work is of our Holocaust Garden of Hope, of Holocaust Remembrance Association, etc. And but he says what you really need to focus on when you're educating people is something similar that you brought in the beginning of your talk, 1919, Nazis' words. The words were out there of the anti-Jewish thing, the race theory and all that. And it took 20 years of hearing the rhetoric that people got used to it until he actually did what he said he would do. And so Michael Berenbaum said, study two things about the Holocaust. Study what happened he actually said later on, study what happened in the 1930s. Pay attention to that. And also pay attention to 1945 when the Holocaust ended, how the world recovered, the hope side of it. So learn two things from the Holocaust during these days. What led to it, and the words that were being spoken, because things happen with words, and also the hope you can get of that there's a potential hopeful recovery. And I did want to say I did not know that Lot meant veil. I thought that was interesting. And you talking about the importance of that. We have a quote at our garden panel that said, a genocide begins with words. And there's a scripture that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And but the biggest thing that I like is when you study Hebrew, and there are some Hebrew speakers probably on here today. I know Emmanuel Ronde is on. Devar in Hebrew means word, but it also means thing. And the whole world was created in Genesis with a word, and God spoke and the world was created. When what we speak, we create. And so it is important to speak. And another thing, I'll just throw this out, this last part is when the Israeli Consul General here in Houston, Gilad Katz, was here. He was really not so much a consul, he was actually communications advisor to Netanyahu in Israel, was really his job. And he taught us, he said, Rosalie, whenever leaders are saying anything against you or against the organization or against, Jews or whatever, you cannot be silent. You have to answer right away. You have to speak up. Otherwise, you are you're in agreement. So that's just a few of my thoughts. I don't know if Mitch, has anybody posted any questions?
Yeah, we do. I just wanted to ask you something quick, Dr. Kokkonen, and thank you for all your sharing. But there's a concern that I've heard from people here in Houston on our Holocaust, not the Garden of Hope, but the Holocaust Museum downtown. And I'm wondering if this is prevalent, maybe even around the world, other museums, that obviously the number of survivors is diminishing every year. They're quite old. And I think there's 250 in Houston, 250,000 around the world, if that's accurate. That's what I've read. And that the concern is that the Holocaust museums would shift towards highlighting other forms of persecution, like a universal persecution, taking it away from the Jewish specificity of the Holocaust, without ignoring. And so what do we do to keep the Jewishness of what the Holocaust is about, when I know even here there's been this head rising up to make it more pervasive of just persecution in general. Have you seen this?
Yeah, that's a very big concern because what we need to remember is that Obviously, there have been many things that have happened. We have the Armenian genocide, which some people say that that was, well, Professor Yehuda Bauer, who passed away, but he said famously that if he had to find something else that resembled the Holocaust, that he found those same stages in the Armenian genocide, which happened during World War I. And then we have genocide in Rwanda, or we have different events that took place. And what makes the Holocaust unique? And that's really important, that we need to understand that what we have here, first of all, we have a modern nation that is using all of its bureaucracy, all of its resources for that one goal, which is the mass murder of the Jews. And we also need to remember and understand that all the Jews were designated for destruction. So this isn't just that they were targeting a certain number of people in certain areas, but their ambitions were greater than they even achieved. And they wanted to take out all the Jews. And then what we also need to understand is the way this happened in an industrialized kind of way, where you have factories for murdering people and you achieve, we don't know any other genocide where that could have been achieved, what they achieved in terms of the speed, how quickly and how many people they were murdering. So, but the other thing that is really important to understand as well is that here we have the evidence from the perpetrators themselves. We have evidence from the survivors. We have evidence from the onlookers. We have evidence from the victims themselves. So nothing is documented like the Holocaust, no other mass murder. So in terms of us putting together the stages, what you need for something like this, it's actually the Holocaust that is the model. That perhaps is not a word that I like to use, but that we understand based on the Holocaust, how this happened. And the stages that researchers have identified how such a mass murder is accomplished, only the Holocaust has all of them. Even the Armenian genocide doesn't have all of them, only the Holocaust does. Now, then in addition to those things, what I have given you is all practical, but then we have this whole thing that these people have been exiled from where they were living 2,000 years ago. And then they are able to return back to that country, and they are able to build a successful nation state in the very same location from where they were dislocated. And they speak the same language today. They have the same scriptures and all of that. So my point is that I think we have a responsibility to talk about all these other things, because even the Holocaust Garden of Hope, we say that our mission is to prevent hatred and we stand against hatred. So we are not saying that we don't, that we would allow, or we would not talk about people who are persecuted, because we want to stand against racial hatred, religious hatred, persecution. But the story of the Holocaust is unique. And if that story is forgotten, it's not like it's going to help all those other people and their stories to be told. We need to keep up. We need to speak about the Holocaust, what happened. And then I would like to connect it with anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is what's connecting everything that happened in history to the Jewish people with what's happening today, the things that are said against the state of Israel today. So I don't see an option. I understand why a museum or an organization, why they might want to talk about other things, and they might want to widen it because survivors will soon no longer be here with us. But I don't see that as an option for myself, or hopefully for this garden.
Dr. Kokkonen, here's a question. Here's a question from Barbara Hella. I've been asked why some Jews are unsupportive of Israel. It seems to run along political lines, more democratic. Any comment? It is true, you see
Well, I think
politicians, et cetera, in Vermont that are anti-Semitic and they're Jewish and it's anti-Israel, et cetera.
yeah, I mean, I think that you know, a lot of people who are against Israel, it might actually be that they also don't really have the facts. A lot of people think that they know because they believe everything that the media is saying and so forth, but they might not really know the reality of all of it. So I think that's why our work is so important, because we want to be able to give that information, and hopefully that information will change some of that thinking. Now, if you don't have all the information, you've never visited Israel, and you just believe what the media says, then it's quite natural then that you might have that reaction that even as a Jew, you might not support Israel. But some of the hatred of Israel obviously is it has like a supernatural element to it. So it really depends. Some people are just ignorant, but I think we need to share the truth. I don't see any other way.
It's like a virus, like Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said.
Mm-hmm.
It morphed from religion to a race. Now it's against the Jewish state. I mean, there's such contradictions about
Yeah.
the dialogue about Israel. One more thing also, we have some people that work with us here, Amy and her mom. They just came back from Greece, and she told me that in the 1800s, Greece and Turkey made a population swap. All the and it was enforced
Mm-hmm.
by their leaders that all Christians from that were in Turkey were sent to Greece, and all the Muslims that were in Greece were sent to Turkey. And to this day, no mosques are allowed in Greece. Now, what's fascinating to me is, why is that not mentioned somewhere in the United Nations? Israel has a ton of mosques everywhere,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
Greece does not allow them. Now, that has anybody heard that? I never did. You don't hear
Yeah,
somebody
I
talking
think I
against
did,
Greece.
but I'm not familiar enough with that, you know, the history background. So
Anyway, Mitch, you want to give what Emmanuel has to say? I think there's another message there.
I'm sorry, say again, babe?
There's another message there
Yeah.
from Emmanuel Rund.
So this is from Emmanuel. It's quite lengthy.
Emmanuel Rund is well known. He's the one who helped bring he was on one of our virtual coffee encounters. He'll hopefully be coming to Houston soon as well. And he has done a lot of work to help start the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, January 27th. That was a lot of his work. But go ahead, babe. What did he say?
So Emmanuel is saying that the Arabs were killing the Jews in the land before there was the land, that the Muslim Mufti of Jerusalem did spend time with Hitler, and they had plotted and planned together. And 500,000 Jews in the land. Let's see, Jews were killed in Arab countries since Muhammad himself slaughtered 1,500 in Habar. And sorry, I lost my spot here. And Dr. Rabbi Michael Berenbaum is the most experienced in setting Holocaust memorials. He believes more than 60 of them have been set. And in Indiana, in 1990, there was a film, All Jews Out, titled All Jews Out, competed for the Oscar. Michael wrote the best film review in Hollywood. Reporter and Variety magazine, Michael Berenbaum, set the memorial here in Philadelphia with 4 motifs, which are also in my film. I directed in the concentration camp Terezin, the train tracks to Auschwitz, the trees, the Jewish youngsters planted there. Also the poems like my protagonist, Ingi Auerbacher, wrote in the camp. A quote, "I wish I was a Brit. I could fly away from here."
Wish I was a bird.
I hope to be in Texas at some time soon and help you with the Hope Garden. In 46, I was one day newborn in Jerusalem when the Muslim Nazis shot at me. trying to kill a Jew. There was no state of Israel at that time. They bombed my shelter in 48. I was 2 years old. Then as I played in the playground, they shot 9 bullets. Wow. Right on the front line, a little child.
We're glad that you lived. And Emmanuel, we will have a special virtual coffee encounter just with you on it. And we'll have Dr. Kokkonen interview you.
Wonderful. Yes.
So anybody else? That looks like somebody else mentioned Brenda, Mitch?
Lots of news about Syria and Israel last week. I personally
Mhm.
love the fact that Israel's protecting the Druze people. They're truly a very
Yeah.
small minority of an odd believing offshoot from Islam, and the Jewish nation protects them in Israel and in Syria. Yet they have a very special connection. You want to share on that? The Druze in
Well, I
Israel?
knew many Druze when I was in, I lived in Israel for over 20 years, and I knew many Druze people there. And, they are very, according to their religion, they are always loyal to wherever they are living, to that country. But now the Syrian new regime is persecuting them, basically. And what we need to understand, what's good to know for telling other people, that Israel has a blood covenant with the Druze community, because the Druze, they all go to the army. And some of them have been in very high places in the Israeli army. And many of them have lost their lives, obviously, for the state. So Israel sees itself as responsible for their welfare. And now in the Golan border, up in the north, there are many Israeli Druze who are trying to rush into Syria to defend their fellow Druze there. And that could cause a terrible chaos, and so the Israeli army they are actually engaging on behalf of the Druze also to prevent some kind of very chaotic situation from developing. But what I was reading from Israeli news media today was that there were also a lot of Druze from Israel who already managed to somehow cross that border. And that could, if Israeli citizens were killed by the Syrian regime, that would be, Israel would have to defend itself. That situation could become very complicated. And I think we need to pray for that situation, because on one hand, the new Syrian regime, they have a jihadist background, but they have given signals, that they don't want a war with Israel. But then this is almost like going into war with Israel, because they must have known that this would happen, that this would be the reaction. So that's very worrying. And I have to say that all the Druze, I met parliament members and different Druze in Israel, and they were all very patriotic and also very nice people. So I sort of feel that it's the right thing to, for Israel to come to their rescue. And the new Syrian regime, that's cause for concern. If you wear a suit, it doesn't mean that you are a modern, person. And that's sort of what he has done, because just a few years ago, he was fighting as a jihadist. So, yeah.
Well, it's now 1:01, and we like to let people know we will close. So I do want to say that, well, isn't it true that the Druze are used to, they're amazing trackers. They're special in the army in Israel. They're honored for and used a lot for that, as I was told by Barry Siegel. But we do have to close right now. We are going to let you know that Joan is going to show a short video, but before she does that, did you want to tell about our conference something real quick?
Yes. So I am, God allowing, I am coming to Houston, Texas in November, actually the last of October. And on the 14th of November, there will be a very special Beauty for Ashes luncheon where I will be speaking. So I'm hoping to see all of you there if you are able to come to Houston. That night, we are going to have a special Shabbat service together. And then the next day, that Saturday, the 15th, we are going to have a very special conference. There will be a Holocaust survivor. I don't know if there will be more than one. I will be teaching, will be touring the garden, and Rosalie is going to be sharing about how this project came to exist in the first place. So we are actually inviting people even from out of town to fly to Houston and to be there on the 13th, that's a Thursday, be there on Thursday evening, because we start with a get-together that evening and then stay those 2 nights. So you can be with us on Friday for the luncheon and for the Shabbat dinner, and then you can be with us for the whole day on Saturday. And I hope to see you there. And then also, I really hope that you are following us on social media, as well as the website of the Holocaust Remembrance Association, because we have frequently statements on different current things. And then we also have blogs. And I'm also writing on every Friday, there's a Pearls of the Torah portion blog where we connect the Torah. Also,
Joan, can you excuse me, Joan, can you show that recent newsletter, or probably the newsletter is best.
So in any case, we invite you to follow us on social media and to share the things that I share or the Holocaust Remembrance Association shares, so that we can get more people to support this project and to follow us, because that's very important. We still have to finish exhibits 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
That's right. All right, Joan, can you share anything? I don't have sharing capacity here. Just real quick to show them the website or the newsletter, which is the better idea, but I guess it's not happening. Okay, so anyway, thank you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
L'chaim, and God bless you. Thanks for staying.
Thank you.
You don't want the video?
I do want the video. I've been waiting for you.
Oh, you told me to do something.
Do the newsletter. Excuse me, do you have the newsletter?
Yeah.
Can you share it like I asked?
I can try.
Thank you. Joan just came back from Israel too, so she was there for a while. So just here we go. Just want to show you this real quick for those who are still on. If you're not getting our newsletters, hopefully, oops, there's a big gray spot there. Can't see it. Okay, that's all right. Because you've registered, you will get our newsletters, and thank you for joining us. Our next event will be July 16th with Dr. Sigal Maypaz. And God bless you. Thank you, Dr. Kokkonen. Bye-bye. Okay, Joan, you could put the video on. Thank you.
Goodbye.
God does not change the world through lightning in the sky. God uses his people. We will honor the memory of Jewish people lost because of persecution, and we will ensure that in our country, no Jews will be persecuted in the United States of America, not as long as we are alive. Yesterday, I visited the Holocaust Garden of Hope. The thing that touched me the most is looking at the pictures of the children who are no longer with us.
We believe in one God, and no matter what went and happened to the Jewish people, we know we will prevail.
Anti-Semitism did not end with the Holocaust.
Today, in the shadow of October 7th massacre, the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust, we're reminded that vigilance is not a choice.
After the first shock of what happened in Gaza, the second shock was to see anti-Semitism explode on campus. And I said, unacceptable, and like Edmund Burke, I will not stand still. And I've been writing and talking about what's happening at Rice since then.
We have family, friends, and neighbors all coming together not by circumstance, but by conviction. And there's a power in that. But we gather tonight because there's this insidious shadow that looms over us called anti-Semitism. We're not here to condemn, but we're here to act. We have completed 3 phases of the Garden of Hope in Kingwood. We have traveling exhibits that will go forth in the future. We have upstander stone projects that are going on in the schools. We have teachers that are being taught to teach the Holocaust around the world. So we're on the front lines in this battle.
I want to share my own personal connection to the Holocaust Remembrance Association. It wasn't but too long ago that my wife, Shana, and our beautiful 4-month-old son, Ronen, visited the Holocaust Garden of Hope. It is really, truly, Rosalie, I don't know where you are, but it's a special place. And thank you for welcoming us. It honors the memory of Holocaust victims and inspires a new generation to defend the Jewish people.
My family was rescued by Christians who put feet to their faith and risked their lives to hide my parents, while the rest of our family was murdered because neighbors turned them in. Descendants of survivors, our job is to keep telling the story.
Welcome to a virtual coffee encounter. Brought to you by the Holocaust Remembrance Association.